and particularly a common function I see used from the Purrr package is this map function. And this is just one of the cheat sheets, you know, from the tidyverse that I've added in here. And there are a lot of different functions in Purrr, as you can see here, and I have not used the vast majority of them. There's a lot in there. I'm still kind of exploring it. But occasionally I have used one of these, one or two of the map functions, and maybe the modify if for like transformation purposes. I think I've used modify if, which basically kind of writes an if statement for you or conditional statement for you. I think I've used it to loop over a list and change a variable type. But today I'm just going to talk about how I've used map before. And the map function, I should note, is not referring to mapping in any sort of geographic sense. It's more like the mapping aesthetics sense, where you're routing some function to an object, or you're mapping it to that object. So the map functions are used to apply a function iteratively to each element of a list or vector. And as you all know, there's a lot of ways to do this in R. Assignment 2 got into quite a few of them with pipes and the apply family of functions. And this is, I'll say that this is very similar to the apply family of functions, but the syntax I think is a little cleaner, and it is easier for me to work with when I'm like writing my own functions and I want to apply them to some data type. And so basically the map function, it takes some sort of object as its first argument, and this can be a vector, a list. It's particularly good for applying some function to lists, or a column in a data frame, right? And then the second thing it takes is the function that you want to apply to that object. And so I'm going to give an example of this with the baby names that I actually did for a class earlier in the year. But there's also a video posted from YouTube that's just an introduction to how the map functions in our work, in the Purrr package, in the tidyverse work. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. It's a brief one. It's only like 7 minutes, just sort of giving an overview of what they're actually doing. And you'll notice that it's very similar to apply. But I just wanted to point it out because a lot of people working within the tidyverse tend to prefer it to apply, because as you guys probably noticed, apply can have some weird behaviors and weird results, and it's a little bit easier with Purrr to sort of specify exactly, let me go back here. There's all these different map functions for specifying exactly what kind of result you get back after you apply the function to the object. So people prefer working with it for that reason rather than the base R apply functions. But I just want to present it as an option. And I actually saw Hadley Wickham, who wrote your book, give a talk on the Purrr package, and he kind of referred to it as like allowing the functions within Purrr kind of allows the functions in it to build loops for you in a way, and I thought that was kind of an interesting way of looking at it. But I want to just get to the example here really quick, and I'll post this example. This was actually like an assignment for one of my classes, one of the first assignments, and it was with the baby names data frame, which we're familiar with. It was where I first heard about the baby names data frame and thought, oh, that's a really good one to work with. And the assignment involved, I believe we needed to make a function that got a random sample of popular baby names for any given year. And it actually had to have like, you had to be able to give it the year, the number of names you wanted it to generate, and also the ratio of male to female names. So that was the first function that we had to do. And so I called the library for baby names, and I am going to use the Purrr package, but it comes in towards the end. And then I wrote my random sample of baby names generator. That is a function that takes the year, the number, and then the ratio. So I'll just make sure that I run that. And there's some other stuff in there that's accounting for the ratio. And then I'm using the sample function to get a random sample. And let's see. And if they don't give you a valid year, I have a warning in there for that. So that's the whole function. And I run it. And then now I can do bnames. What did I call it? Yeah, bnames. And it takes the year, so I'll just do 2003. And I'll just have it return like 8 names. And since ratio is a optional argument by default, it will just do half male and half female, so we should get 4 female and 4 male names. Okay, and so it's just returned a random sample of some of the most popular baby names for 2003. And then the next function that we needed to do was similar to a function that we've already seen in this class. Remember, a couple classes ago I did a name popularity prediction function. And so this was, we were supposed to do some sort of model that predicted the popularity of a name. And I just did a linear polyline model, you know, fit down here. It's not super advanced. It's not doing any sort of machine learning or anything like that. But I just wanted to get the functions to work. That basically predicts over the years the popularity of the name. And it's kind of interesting because you can see when certain names peaked and stuff. And I think we did this for one of the names in the data set a few classes ago. But I'll just run that. It's very similar, although it is accounting for popular male and female names with those if conditional statements there. So I don't remember if we did that, but again, I'm going to post this all so you can take a look at it and see how it works. Okay, so we did that, and so now we can do, let's see, name popularity predict takes a given name, so any name that I give it, it will do that linear fit for that name. So name, and then I'll just do Mary. Actually, I'll do my mom's name, Sherry, because you can see it like peak in the 60s. It's kind of fun. Yep. So then there's the population, or the popularity for the number of females named Mary. It doesn't have that 0 line because I accounted for the male versus female name. And so finally, for like the mapping part, final part of this assignment was to take that random sample that was generated from bnames and then apply that popularity prediction to the names in that sample. And the way that I decided to do this, again, people probably did it different ways, but I decided to use the map function. And so this is all that final function is. I called it beefed up bnames for some reason, and this is all that it is. Let me zoom in a bit here. Okay. So all it is a function that's again going to take it. They specify that it needs to take the year and the number of names you were going to do a prediction for that year, and also the proportion of male or female. And so in order to do this, I just assign the results of the call of baby names, which already takes those arguments, to a variable named result baby names. And so that's going to store the object, which is a list of names that's returned by bnames, into the result there. And then I can use the map function in Purrr. And the first thing it takes is that object, that list of names that was generated by the random sample for that year of bnames, and then I can map that name popularity predict to each one of the things in that list. So remember, this function, the second argument that it takes, is going to iterate over whatever object is on the left. So I can run that, and now if I call beefed up bnames, I can give it the year, say 1990. I'll just give it 4. And I'll just leave the proportion of male and female as the default. And so it should generate a graph for 4 names. Actually, it will do it like one after the other, so we'll have to kind of watch it. So run that and see it does all 4 names. And then we can kind of look. It also outputs a prediction of the popularity or change in slope. That I think that was the other part of the assignment, had to predict for 2025 what the proportional change would be, but it is outputting a list. In this case, the general map function just outputs a list. And so it's doing it for Erica, Victoria, and Joshua and Kevin. And so that's just an example of where I've used the map function before. I do tend to prefer it to the apply family of functions. It just like makes more sense to me. It kind of works the way I expect R to work with iterating over structures like lists. So I just wanted to provide a quick example, and I'll share this with you all on the DIGA645 examples on my GitHub, so you can take a look at it. Since we have worked with baby names in the past, it's kind of like this whole assignment was sort of like a conglomeration of everything I've done with that data set.